The cargo cult in science, a misleading approach to scientific inquiry. In the world of scientific research, integrity and rigor are crucial for advancing our understanding of nature and improving our lives. However, not all scientific pursuits adhere to these ideals. Sometimes the form of science is preserved, but its substance is hollow. This phenomenon is commonly referred to as cargo cult science, a term popularized by the physicist Richard Feynman in his 1974 commencement address at Caltech. What is cargo cult science? Cargo cult science refers to research practices that mimic the superficial aspects of science but lack the core qualities that make science a reliable method of inquiry, such as transparency, rigorous testing, and reproducibility. Feynman likened this behavior to the cargo cults in the South Pacific during World War II. The islanders, having witnessed Allied forces landing planes filled with supplies, or cargo, during the war, attempted to replicate the appearance of these landings after the war ended. They built runways, constructed imitation planes, and performed rituals to bring the cargo back, but the crucial understanding of how and why the planes landed was missing. In the same way, researchers who engage in cargo cult science may follow all the superficial steps of the scientific method, conducting experiments, publishing papers, and presenting findings, but without truly understanding the underlying principles of proper scientific investigation. Feynman on cargo cult science. Feynman described the phenomenon eloquently in his speech. In the South Seas, there is a cargo cult of people. During the war, they saw airplanes land with lots of good materials, and they want the same thing to happen now. So they've arranged to make things like runways, to put fires along the sides of the runways, to make a wooden hut for a man to sit in, with 2 wooden pieces on his head like headphones and bars of bamboo sticking out like antennas. He's the controller. And they wait for the airplanes to land. They're doing everything right. The form is perfect. It looks exactly the way it looked before. But it doesn't work. No airplanes land. The same, Feynman argued, could be said about certain areas of scientific research where the appearance of validity is maintained while ignoring the deeper, more essential aspects of scientific rigor. Examples in modern science cargo cult science can manifest in several ways. One common example is the failure to control for biases or confounding variables, even when sophisticated equipment and complex statistical methods are used. As a result, the findings may seem credible on the surface but fail to stand up to scrutiny. In fields such as psychology and biomedical research, the reproducibility crisis, the difficulty in replicating study results, has been partially attributed to practices that resemble cargo cult science. Researchers may present findings based on flawed methodologies or data that have been cherry-picked to fit a desired conclusion, rather than letting the data guide their conclusions. Feynman critiqued this tendency in Science, stating, "The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. This reflects the danger of becoming too attached to hypotheses or results, leading scientists to subconsciously ignore or downplay evidence that contradicts their expectations." Signs of cargo cult science: lack of reproducibility. One of the hallmarks of science is that experiments should be repeatable. If researchers in other labs cannot replicate the findings of a particular study, it raises red flags about the validity of the research. Cargo cult science often lacks this reproducibility, either because the original experiment was flawed or because key details were omitted. Absence of rigorous testing. True scientific inquiry involves testing hypotheses rigorously, often through controlled experiments or extensive observation. Cargo cult science, on the other hand, may present conclusions without thorough testing or without adequate peer review. Over-reliance on authority or prestige. Some research is accepted not because of its empirical validity, but because it comes from prestigious institutions or prominent scientists. This can create a form of cargo cult science where the trappings of credibility, affiliations, publications, or fame mask a lack of true scientific rigor. The consequences. The consequences of cargo cult science can be severe. When false or exaggerated findings are accepted as valid, they can mislead future research, waste valuable resources, and erode public trust in science. In medical fields, the repercussions can be even more dire, as flawed research can lead to ineffective or harmful treatments being adopted. Furthermore, cargo cult science undermines the credibility of legitimate scientific work. When pseudoscientific practices or poorly conducted studies are exposed, it can feed into the broader public skepticism of science, which is often amplified by misinformation campaigns. Conclusion. Cargo cult science is a cautionary tale for researchers in all fields. It reminds us that science is not merely a set of procedures, but a disciplined way of thinking. True scientific progress requires more than just the appearance of rigor. It demands genuine inquiry, a willingness to question assumptions, and a commitment to following the evidence wherever it leads. As Feynman so aptly put it, we've learned from experience that the truth will out. Other experimenters will repeat your experiment and find out whether you were wrong or right. Nature's phenomena will agree or they'll disagree with your theory. And although you may gain some temporary fame and excitement, you will not gain a good reputation as a scientist if you haven't tried to be very careful in this kind of work. In the end, real science is about more than replicating the forms and rituals of the scientific method. It's about seeking truth, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable.